This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. By the end of 2020, 99% of exploited vulnerabilities will be publicly disclosed and known to IT system admins. The consequences of that fact means the burglar will already be in your house because you left the front door wide open by failing to patch known vulnerabilities. How can you keep the threat actors out? Through cloud-based automation, Automox enables you to slam the door on unpatched OS and third-party vulnerabilities across your entire Windows, Mac, and Linux infrastructure. Take advantage of a free trial with Automox to not only see the vulnerability status of your infrastructure, but do something about it within minutes. Start automating the fundamentals of cyber hygiene at securityweekly.com/Automox. That's securityweekly.com/Automox. Networks are becoming increasingly complex and fragmented, and digital transformation and DevOps are driving an explosion in network connectivity changes. With each new network connection, cyber attackers may gain another opening to breach or traverse the network. At Tufin, they've pioneered a policy-based approach to network security management using automation and analytics. As a result, you can make network changes in minutes instead of days, reliably and securely. To learn more about Tufin, the security policy company, go to securityweekly.com/Tufin and sign up for a free evaluation. Prevention-based tools leave you blind to threats inside your network. By adding network traffic analysis to your SOC, you can find and stop attackers before they make their move. ExtraHop provides complete visibility at enterprise scale. Detect threats 95% faster with machine learning that helps Tier 1 analysts perform like seasoned threat hunters. Visit extrahop.com/securityweekly to learn why the SAND Institute calls ExtraHop fast and amazingly thorough. That's extrahop.com/securityweekly. Welcome everyone to Enterprise Security Weekly, episode number 148, being recorded live at Blackout 2019. It's day 2. We've done a ton of interviews and recording, and now we're going to do Enterprise Security Weekly.
Why not?
Why not, right?
Why not?
We're here. We got the cameras. Mr. Alderman is here with me. And it's going to be good times. Do I have any announcements? Do I have to read announcements, I guess? Should I read something? No, I'm just going to go. So welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'd like to introduce our guests from ExtraHop for this segment. John Smith is a systems engineer with ExtraHop. John, welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you for the easy to pronounce name. It's awesome.
Thank my parents. I thank them every day.
That's it. Bryce Hine is here with us. He's the senior vice president of marketing for ExtraHop. Welcome.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We had an extra seat. I said, Bryce, come on.
Sit in.
I'm good at filling chairs.
It's all
good
good
at that.
I think one thing that we addressed with the marketing in the title thing was to have our audience not just dismiss everything that they say because marketing's in the title.
Yeah.
I'm like, we've worked with a lot of VPs of marketing and like very intelligent people.
Some former CMOs.
Yeah, like don't dismiss people based on title, right? So it's cool. It's cool.
This is mantra too, right? Rise above the noise, try to cut through it, be legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Address real issues with CISOs.
I don't know how many people know the story of the ExtraHop story, but I think it's interesting, right? You guys shifted into security, like you said, about 18 months ago, and you put out this press release, and you and John reviewed it on Enterprise Security Weekly and just went, I don't understand what they're doing. I don't get it. Kind of ripped into ExtraHop a little bit.
We call them like we see them, right?
Exactly. We call it the way we see it, right? And John made an effort to go see them at RSA.
Well, so let me hold on. In between there, what John and I always said when we started the show was, we're going to read these press releases and we're like, wow, some of these are really horrible. I'm like, we're going to call it out for what they are. But we always state on the show that this doesn't mean that the security vendor has a terrible product. I'm like, there could be customers out there that love this product that are solving problems for them. It just so happens that this message in this press release wasn't great. We're going to call you out on it. If you want to chat later, we're happy to chat. We're happy to visit them at RSA, which is what John did.
And John went to RSA, went to the ExtraHop booth and checked it out. And John comes back on the show after RSA and goes, that interface is so good, I want to lick it. Right? And they are a sponsor on 2 of our shows, including this show, and have been a great sponsor. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, you guys are adding value to the industry by poking at things like that, right? And in retrospect, you're absolutely right. And so for our ability to just cut through it, address real issues, get down to real projects that CISOs are dealing with, and real use cases that practitioners have to deal with every day. It actually really helped us, and it's allowed us to hone our message and just be a lot more legit.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
You guys have been great.
Now, hold on. Since we mentioned the interface, and we have John here on the show, right? What's the interface written in? How's it constructed? As much as you're willing to share about the interface.
I'm not sure what language it's using. I'm not sure actually.
Usually that's a separate team, so it's fair.
Yeah, it's written in beautifulness, right?
Right. Yes.
So,
exactly.
and the interface is really interesting because when we first started, the product itself kind of, I was a former customer. Swore we would never buy ExtraHop. By the way, that's an interesting story.
And you went to the dark side.
Oh,
you're like the third one.
Not only that, I take every time my former colleagues see me, they give me a hard time because I ended up working for the company. I told them that they could never have. But we came out of the gate with kind of the big muscles, right? It was the only product that could scale to give us visibility, right? But early on, we didn't even have dashboards. We would do these custom pages, and we would try to call them dashboards. So now, I mean, the way the product has evolved in terms of how you navigate the UI and that kind of stuff, it's really, it's incredible. I mean, you look back, in the old days, and you're like, wow, how did we ever sell the old product? Because it's so much, it's so much more intuitive and so much nicer.
But John, everyone looks at their software like that and looks at older versions and goes, wow, how did I ever use that? So you're not alone there.
Oh, yeah.
But the key is to follow the workflow, right? So one of the things that I think we've done a really good job of is not just starting with the visibility and trying to wrangle all this enterprise data, but get to detections and then follow all the way through to root cause, which is unusual in our space, NDR space.
Yeah.
So following the workflow where, really the SOC needs to
more
go.
the user experience and how they use the product versus the UI and how beautiful and lovely it is, which it is now, but
There's a lot of sexy facades out there. Ours not only is sexy and lickable, but
but
you can
usable.
Keep going,
Yes.
usable.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, we call it UI porn, right? And we're not just flashy UI porn. I mean, there is a workflow that you can follow, and it's not enough just to marshal together a bunch of tuples, and you have to actually provide a workflow.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that you don't have to have
I mean,
expensive
users have to.
resource.
It has to work for the user, and there has to be a logical flow of how you take the data and action on it somewhere, right? And so I think it's a great example of the user experience side of based on your persona. How do you use this product and make it effective in your daily activities? And you guys have done a really good job of that.
I just want to pause there and just for our audience, describe the problem you solve and how the product is implemented and what it does, the span, port, how does it, people need that context before we move on, I think.
Yeah, so the way the product is deployed is we work off of a mirror of the traffic, right? And that has a lot of value. Like I remember going to a database team and asking them to install a Splunk forwarder, and I basically got laughed out of the room, right? And when I can take a mirror of the traffic, I don't have to ask anyone to install anything, right? So I've got this kind of surveillance at the lateral corridor. I don't have to ask anyone to install anything. And so what's often
you can ask your network team for a span.
You got to get a span,
port,
and that can be challenging
but
unless it's AWS or one of the cloud.
Sure.
ones.
So you can take it from AWS. Is that a recent feature?
Yeah. So
announcement?
with VPC mirroring, we can actually.
I feel like that's gotten better over the years too,
Absolutely.
and easier to integrate because you're not the first person to tell me that they're pulling traffic from AWS.
Which can be controlled by the security team themselves, so they can turn on traffic mirror themselves. So there's even just this from the start is built to be fairly
But
secure.
internally, we also have a lot more options than we did 15, 20 years ago for mirroring this
I
traffic.
mean, it was
Span
hard to get a
aggregators.
span port
It was.
because at one time everybody wanted a span port, right? And it was like, I can't give you any more. There's technologies out there now. There's everybody knows kind of the
major players,
major players in that.
AppCon
And there's all kinds of
you get
hardware.
those,
So we've got good options. All right, so I get a mirror of my traffic. Then what happens?
Well, the problem is you were able to fill in those gaps, right? I mean, if you look at traditionally you use an endpoint and a SIEM. I was a huge Splunk guy, right? I was a very big SIEM guy. The challenge there is that there are noisy protocols like CIFS and DNS. Well, if one CIFS doesn't log, period. So the only really good data is on the wire. Even Windows Event Logs doesn't have the same quality and the same context that you actually get on the wire. So wire data itself delivers a lot of, it's kind of the richest intelligence source
As
that
people
you
would
have.
say, the network does not lie.
Yep. And so what we do is we take that, that really punishing act of looking at a Wireshark trace, and we kind of put it into a nice usable GUI with workflows that you can click through, right? So the problem we
I
solve,
do feel like people should learn those
no
underlying,
question.
right, and go
Absolutely.
through those painful exercises.
Pull a
and then,
PCAP.
and then and take a class and learn it, because there's enough there where I think it certainly warrants. I mean, that's how I got started in security.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, this is awesome, and I read TCP/IP Illustrated Volume 1,
Yep.
and then I was like addicted ever since. But now we've got these fancy interfaces. I feel like you don't appreciate them unless you've looked at raw PCAPs and done that level of analysis, right?
No question. Yeah. Yep. So then at that point, the problem we're solving is, if it doesn't log, if it's an IoT device, right, we provide visibility into those gaps. But like DNS2, right, we had a customer that was, logging millions of records an hour, right, because it's noisy. And to me, even if you're taking in logs, if you're taking in millions of them an hour, we've delivered a lot of big data. We haven't delivered big context or any big analytics, right? So what we do is we're able to sort of, pull things off the wire, and we can do it in microseconds. And so now data that you would maybe have to have, a rack or a half a rack of indexing servers to be able to pull anything meaningful out of, we're doing that.
For DNS, I prefer to pull it off the
directly
wire.
off the wire.
Because you configure it to do logging. It has performance impacts. You're adjusting your configurations. You got storage. If you can pull it off the wire, I use Bro, right, to just pull it off the wire. And, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of so we're different. We're not writing to a log or writing to a PCAP, reading it, and then showing you context. We're sort of deriving the context in flight, and that's where we're not putting a UI on top of an open source product, and those are, there's a market for those. It's a different product than what you have out there. So we're purpose built for analytics. A lot of these solutions were purpose built for archiving, and the real innovation is the really cool analytics that have been put on top of those, right?
So you're analyzing as it comes in and storing just the
in real time off of a tap. So this is what I think is interesting.
At line rate.
Right, at line speed, right? Which is interesting because back in the old days of IDS and IPS and all the rave and stuff, right? It was hard to do stuff at line speed, right? And you look at deep packet inspection technologies and other things that are out there that just, oh my gosh, they're brutal.
At one time, I was in the university and I had a network load balancer, a tap balancer. So like it would take a span port. And the university, like a gig coming off of a span port, that was a lot of traffic to deal with in 2003 or whatever it was.
Sure.
And then it would make a copy of portions of that traffic across 8 ports. I built like 6 or 7 different OpenBSD machines that were all running Snort to analyze the traffic. That was cool, but it was a lot of infrastructure to maintain.
Yeah, a lot of maintain.
Now today, the technology's way better.
Oh, way better,
right?
Yeah. In back in that day of IDS versus IPS, inline versus on the tap, what could you do, what couldn't you do, TCP resets, etc. What I think is interesting in what you guys have built is I get that line speed, but I don't have to be in line. And therefore, you don't have the burden of some of these other solutions that require you to be in line that potentially have a performance impact or they can't keep up, but you're getting all that same real visibility off that tap, which is, I think, awesome.
And so you can invest in software and machine learning and everything else as opposed to network ASICs and the like, right?
Well, and those inline devices are risky, right? I mean, security teams end up finding themselves in the performance war room because they're blaming the code. I mean, I ran a WAF, right? And the minute things got slow, well, can we shut the WAF off, right? And I'm like, guys, so one we can, if you have a WAF, we can help show that it's not the WAF. That's But now we're totally out of man. We're not forcing ourselves into the conversation. We're sitting back, kind of like a closed caption television. Only we're cataloging and categorizing, things that we observe, and so it's a much better way to go about it. And it's the covert position that you can take with the platform is a much better, because one, they don't know you're there. We all saw the NSA's worst nightmare. That's a common slide at BroCon, right? They don't know we're there. So the military uses a term called defilade, where it's basically you're in a position where you can see your enemy, but they can't see you, and you are totally protected. And that's really the position that we take, right? And that's like defilade is kind of a key part of any battle, right? And so that's our position. We have that covert posture, and we know you're there, even if you don't know you're there.
Getting down to the analytics portion, I mean, we talked about, like, we can look at a PCAP, right? And all 4 of us could look at the same PCAP and draw very different conclusions, right? In your product, how are you differentiating good versus bad and detecting anomalies? Because that's really the crux of the issue, right? Is how do you automate that?
Well, some detections we don't need a machine learning for, right?
Yeah,
if
yeah,
there's something egregious, right? So
right.
typically we're doing things around, predictive analytics, peering, that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know what the next big breach is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it'll be a compromise host doing something that it wasn't previously doing. And the idea there is that, hey, we see this new peer here, we have the spike in traffic, right? So there's
what I like to tell junior analysts that come in intern with us is they're like, I don't know what to look at. And I'm like, here's a place to start. Look at most frequently occurring events and least frequently occurring events, and then apply that to your event type. So the most connections, the fewest connections, the largest data transfers, the smallest data transfers, and just start there.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we're ML is, I know it's marketed as a panacea, not by us, but by some
I'm coming down
folks.
that you can use the term machine learning. It's
Yes.
totally fine.
Okay.
But we
Yep.
gotta-
AI,
Okay.
let's keep it out.
Yeah.
Everybody take,
but you describe how you're doing it, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep. So, I mean, and luckily for us, right, math has been remarkably consistent the last 6 billion years.
Right.
Our
Math is math,
yeah,
right?
our
1
competitors,
plus 1 still equals 2,
yeah,
right?
Our competitors have smart math geeks. We've got really smart math geeks on, but the big thing where we're a little bit different is we're analyzing, literally, they're working with hundreds of tuples, a lot of them, especially the bro-based ones. We're working with thousands of tuples. So if you think of that, it is going to evolve. We have thousands of chromosomes. A lot of our competitors have hundreds of chromosomes. And so, that's where we sort of, our ML is constantly changing, but what we have available to us in terms of what we can bring to our machine learning model is really large, right? And so that's how we can kind of, when there's new O days, I mean, there are certain things, what they were attacking, SMB was a whipping boy years ago. We kind of had a break, and then they went after it again.
Right.
So what I envision is that we're going to be able to pivot with the industry simply because of the breadth that we can cover. And that's the challenge in the lateral corridor. I was doing a talk earlier where, if you see 20 gigs outport 11,000 in the DMZ, that sticks out like a sore thumb. You have a handful of ports you're looking for.
Right.
That's just another day in the office at the lateral corridor. And that's one of the reasons we got pulled into here, is that security teams wanted visibility in the lateral corridor.
Yeah.
Their tools fell over, at the 10, when you get into the 10 gigabits, 40 gigabits per second.
100 gig.
I know there's a lot of vendors, but it's lonely here. There's not a lot of us providing lateral surveillance at that scale, and so that's kind of why we were brought in here.
Because so many protocols, so many connections, it just multiplies all the things you have to look at.
And I think the other important part is we're doing our ML in the cloud. And so we're able to scale the processing. We're able to take advantage of all that processing power and really look at hundreds of models per device. So if you've got 10,000 devices or 10,000 units inside your environment, you're talking about 1 million models that we're able to apply because it's all cloud scale ML.
But I think you bring up an interesting point about deployment, is that you're not just looking at ingress and egress. You want to be in
lateral.
I used to always,
lateral.
when the
That's
network
hard
admins
part.
would let me, I would like to tap in between our 2 core switches, right? Because I'd get that not just ingress, egress, some of it, but I get the lateral traffic as well. And now when I was at the university, that lateral traffic was really important because there was a lot of stuff going on in between the departments and in between students and our infrastructure and between the departments, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. No, and there's going egress, there's maybe 10 doors that you have to watch. There's 65,000 535 doors at the lateral corridor that you have to watch.
Right.
And now if you're a bad actor, you have kind of this breadth that you can kind of work with in terms of how you navigate, I mean, and people are trying to fix it with zero trust. And, I was a part of a few NAC projects early on. I mean, this micro segmentation is kind of arose by any another name. We never knew who was talking to each other. So our NAC implementation 10 years ago was a bloodbath because we just didn't know. So,
visibility was part of the problem.
Yep,
right?
it was. Yeah. So, a really good use case is if you're looking at that, you kind of need to know what needs to be opened and what doesn't need to be opened, and then you can also ask questions. Hey, why is that?
John, you were describing earlier some detections for Windows-based attacks, LLMNR style. Did I say that right? It's been a long day.
Yeah, responder.
Yeah, responder. Yeah.
So it was a trigger I'd written. I have not seen it in the wild. It was one I did in the lab. But one of the things that we can do is something called, I call it protocol threading, where you see an LLM and our response, and that's bad. But we talked about earlier, it's in most cases a unmanaged box or a forgotten Windows XP
It always
system.
is. Being a pen tester, it was
ATM
always
that's still running XP
that's under
somewhere,
some
right?
guy's desk.
Right.
So that's bad, but what we can do is we can sort of park that in something we call a session table and say, okay, you now have one mark against you, right? Or you're on the watch list. We've noticed this LM. Now if that same box responds to a WPAD query, now you've entered this new level. And in the future, we're going to have a new way where we'll be able to handle compound detections too as well. So now you have these two criteria, but protocol threading is something is really difficult to do with logs. And so when we talk about full stream reassembly, right, that's the kind of agility you have in terms of, hey, I don't just need to see you on an individual protocol level, because a pen tester or a bad actor might try a multitude of different protocols, right, to try to breach something or try to move
create
laterally.
command control or move laterally.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's another really good, really unique way where, again, you can thread two different protocols and say, hey, or another one we're working on. There's a lot of hand wringing over DNS over HTTPS, right? And that's one. So I'm working on a bridge trigger that kind of looks and says, hey, you have 75 unique SNIs or unique external IPs, and you have one DNS transaction, right? So there's some things, and that's part of, again, when you're grabbing the data off the wire, that's some of the intelligence that you can kind of see.
And so some of those triggers we can set up ourselves. Otherwise, it's unsupervised machine learning.
Yep.
And then once you've got the detection, one thing that sets us apart is the ability to then investigate down and go all the way down to forensics, which is going back to the UI, the workflow, going all the way through.
So because, again, when you see the event, now, okay, where did that start? Kind of peel that onion back, and and there's a ton of data there, because we're talking network packet data level, right?
Yes.
Are you storing files coming off, or?
No, we will store. So we do PCAPs. That's an option that you can add. So we do use the PCAP for that last mile. A lot of the intelligence is done via the metadata, and that's what makes the product so fast. It gives us that shutter speed that we need for for the 10 gig network infrastructure. So
100 gig.
100 or well, I mean tens of gigabits.
Yes.
The unit of measurement is now tens of gigabits per
Tens
second.
of gig.
But,
it was 10, then 40, then
on a rule by rule basis, you can say, give me a PCAC of just this when it triggers.
We can,
Okay.
we can, absolutely.
So then you could feed that into something that strips the files out. And
we have our PCAPs are API-ified. I don't know if that's we're very
it's a good enough term.
Yeah,
you could say JSON-ified.
I'm going to put that in the data sheet.
API-ified.
No, I got another one for you. I haven't gotten there yet.
All right, good.
But we can also, I can send a link to a PCAP in a Demisto alert, right? And just click the PCAP and go right to it. So you can completely get enough information to give someone a cardboard box with the metadata, but if you want to prosecute, or there's reasons for the PCAP. So we don't lean on the PCAP to derive intelligence, though, right? We're doing that with
more
the
for forensics.
Yeah, and I don't want to store everything, but
oh my gosh,
if I got an interesting rule, I want to maybe save those PCAPs to maybe pull some files off.
No
for
question.
analysis
Yeah, if you want to file
like
card,
and that'll depend on the industry a little bit. If they want to keep it all full packet capture.
So my marketing term for you on the marketing side is, he talked about chromosomes, right? Hundreds versus thousands. Think of evolution in evolving your network security from an evolution perspective, because you are evolving the number of tuples that you can analyze against, and that is evolutionary when you think about how much data you can analyze and process and get insight into. That's a very interesting way to think about. Also, what you guys are doing is you're evolving the way you can actually analyze that network
Evolving or transforming, right?
Yeah.
If you think about the cloud and the ability now to get those, you talked about traffic mirroring, but in AWS environment, just sort of get it for free a little bit. Get that. It's ubiquitous. The data comes at you. It's a lot more. You're able to take that data and just do a lot more analytics.
Yeah, and the beauty with AWS is data in is free. It's as long as you let it come in and analyze it. That's a heck of a lot cheaper model, but
but
certainly.
To my first statement, right? We see the network as the most the best source of intelligence, and so we're kind of the purveyors of that that intelligence, and we do it at a pretty impressive scale. I mean, like I said, that's. The NPM space is a scale or die space, and a lot of that technology that went into that Gartner leading, NPM solution the security teams found it very, very valuable. I mean, we live in a tens of gigabits per second world now, and it's tough to do with tools that were designed for the perimeter.
Yeah,
So,
that's for sure.
Yeah, this new space is called NDR, so network detection and response. You know, it's and we view ourselves as cloud native in the way that we approach that, whether it's our cloud ML or whether it's our SaaS-based offering up in AWS.
You ran a contest here. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was fun. So at Blackout, we ran basically a red-blue contest, and we did it for 2 key charities, for Hackers for Charity and for Code.org. Yeah. And thank you guys for participating. We appreciate that.
I participated. I don't know how much you participated.
I participated by proxy.
Yeah, by proxy.
Yeah. but it was a fun event. And the one thing that we were surprised by was how many people got engaged with it. You know,
That's
how many
great.
people got involved on the show floor.
It was like a scavenger hunt.
A little bit, yeah.
Kinda
Like
game.
a little bit. Yeah. But
How to gamify Black Hat, right?
Yeah.
So when Rachel and Jack approached us to do this, I remember what we did at Black Hat. What was that, 2015 or something, when we did the whole gaming level up stuff, right? And we brought the games in, we brought the arcade games in, because this is an audience that, look, they tend to go that way, right? And they brought the idea to us, and we said, I think this is a great idea. How do you turn Black Hat into something a little more fun and challenging from a game perspective? And ExtraHop said, yeah, we got this idea. And we said, wow, we're in, right?
Yeah.
And so I was the blue team captain, and you were the red team captain, and you guys ran this little bit.
It's a great way for people to have fun, but also they care about doing good, right? And both of these charities are all about that. So congratulations, you won. Hackers
The red
for Charity.
teams win because
Red team won.
Red team won. Now,
because hacking and cheating are like the same, sort of
now
similar.
From a blue team perspective, I call an audit. Because if there's any selfies with you, I can guarantee they're illegitimate, because you've been here for 2 days.
People probably went in their phone archives and
but
looking
see,
for
we knew
selfies they took when they
right, exactly, and they're like, I'm going to post them now.
Yeah.
Because red teams win because red teams hack the game.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what happened.
And so we're pleased to donate $10,000 to Hackers for Charity.
Hey, winning's
and everything
winning.
they're doing.
Doesn't matter how you get. Never mind.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was for a good cause. So we also want to help you out too. So we're going to donate $2,000 to Code.org.
That's
too.
awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You know, they're trying to make education just a
absolutely.
lot more accessible, STEM education, and build the next engineers that are helping to throttle this.
So at the end, everybody won.
Everybody wins.
won.
Everybody won.
Yeah,
that's great.
So thank you guys for participating.
Oh, thanks for doing it. It was
really
awesome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your
We had a lot of fun.
donations.
Yeah, like I said, I was trying to get down to the booth and a couple times over the last couple days and try to get some selfies and help the blue team out. But the red team hacked it.
Yep.
As we do. Well, thank you both for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly. Reminder to our listeners, visit securityweekly.com/ExtraHop for all things ExtraHop that they've done with Security Weekly and links to all the resources that they provide.